got it. Hey everyone, this is the Tulsa Music Stream. You are on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. I don't know which one, but
recording
you're on one
in
of those.
progress.
That's all I know. Anyway, my name's Scott, and this is the Tulsa Music Stream. Today's guest, we do have Jizzy Pearl, and this is the 51st episode.
51,
so,
gosh.
Amazing.
I know. We're like seasoned veterans now.
Yeah. So if you're on YouTube, or if you have a YouTube account or a Facebook account or a Twitter page, whatever, make sure you add Tulsa Music Stream and hit the notification and the bell and all that good stuff, so that every time we go live, you will get that notification, and you can join us each and every time we have an awesome guest like Jizzy Pearl.
For sure.
Yeah.
Jizzy has been amazing. He's nothing but professional, very intelligent guy. We're always so glad to get a chance to talk to him. He's actually already here, so if you guys are okay, I'm going to work on getting him in the room.
Yeah.
Very prompt and on time. I wouldn't expect anything else from Mr. Pearl. He is getting hooked up as we speak.
Yeah. I'd like to personally thank everybody who came out this weekend to the shows, even though the roads were semi bad, and the Cimarron was a good night Friday. It was a great night Saturday for Paralandra. So thanks everybody for coming out and supporting the bands.
Totally.
It's very important.
Totally awesome. I'm going to check in with Jizzy here. Jizzy, can you hear us and see us okay? Hello, Jizzy.
Hola.
Yeah, can you hear us now?
Hola.
Hola. Can you hear us, bud?
Yeah, it is me.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Wow, this is bilingual. That's great because we don't speak any Spanish.
Mucho mota.
Let me get you on screen. There you are. How are things going?
Good. Are we on?
We are on live as we speak.
Say hello to Tulsa.
Are you guys frozen out? Is that what I'm hearing?
We've just been through a pretty rough winter storm out here. Yeah, finally the streets are clearing off a little, but we were hunkered down for a few days. It got super cold, and we got what about 8
The truth is, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Badly. It fucking sucks.
It was terrible.
It's nothing like L.A.
No, nothing.
Well, it's tough here in Vegas. It's about 70 degrees. And
jeez, man.
Thank you guys.
Rub it in.
Thanks, Jizzy.
Yeah, rub it in. Well, we just want to tell you how much it meant to us that you agreed to come back on and talk about your new book, and we're going to dig into that and a lot of other stuff. I want to lay the groundwork a little bit. Before we dig into the book, let me put this up. Not only is the new book, which is called All the Devils, out now and available for purchase at jizzypearl.net, Jizzy's also done a reissue of his previous 3 books. And that's a limited run, and every copy that he sells, he also is going to sign it for you guys. So if you go visit his website at jizzypearl.net, you will see your different purchasing options there. You can either buy the books individually, or he's also offering a book bundle where you can get a couple of different copies or all 3. And all the prices are extremely reasonable for the quality of entertainment and intelligence that you get in these books. They do not disappoint. And Jizzy, I hope you'll bear with me for a minute. This is going to be a little bit long-winded of something I want to say to you, but at the core of it is a thank you because you've helped me with something, and I want to explain what I'm talking about. And there's a question at the end of this for you. I want to pull up an excerpt from your introduction, and this is in your new book, All the Devils, and I'm going to tell you why this helped me. Let me read it to our viewers here. It said, "So I had an epiphany. I realized that writing these crazy stories has made me feel young again. I can still be cutting edge. I can still push those same buttons I pushed in the 90s, only on paper. That glorious feeling can still be achieved through the written word, my friends. I can still be Jizzy. I don't have to settle with just being Jim, even though I am Jim too. Jim is happily married. Jim is sober. Jim is still doing sit-ups and still rocking on the road. But the other guy, Jizzy, that guy can still blow your mind." Now, let me put you back on screen. And I want to explain to you why this set off a light bulb for me. It really helped me. I'm 48 years old. Since the age of 17, in addition to working my day jobs, all I've ever done and all I've ever known is playing in local bands. And that's been my life. And as I age and get to that point where it's like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm not doing this anymore. And I've been kind of freaking out thinking, God, I got to reinvent myself and I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I read that and I thought, you know what? You don't really have to reinvent yourself. You just figure out a way to let the younger, crazier version of you live on in a different form. So here's my question after all that blah, blah, blah. What, in your words, tell us why you think it's important to hold on to that younger, crazier version of yourself as you age.
Well, I'll give credit to Tracy Guns, because he was the one that told me years ago that music keeps you young. And I think he's right. And I say that in the sense that when you see people retire from music, professional musicians, they get fat and they start to let their hair get gray, and they start to, it's almost like Bilbo Baggins losing the ring, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of a sudden he starts aging again. And so that's kind of how I feel that music, it keeps you young, but it also forces you to stay in the game, because you want to keep that standard of excellence up, and so you don't get, booed on YouTube. And so, I mean, I think that's part of it. And when I wrote that part in the foreword, it's because when I first came out with my Blackout in the Red Room record, and we were in England and stuff, we were pretty famous then. We were pretty huge. And I remember it fondly, selling out 2,000 seaters, tours selling out, 2 months before we ever even got there. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, we were on the covers of magazines and all that rock star shit.
Right.
And here we are 30 years later, and, I'm not trying to chase that guy, because that guy is never going to come back.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm never going to be in some 20-year-old band, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
and that's okay. And that's okay, because I had that time in my life. But writing you can still push the buttons of, you know what I mean, that can be pushed.
Sure.
And so I guess that's what that's about.
Sure. That makes sense to me.
And you got to be that guy when you were younger, and you survived it, and which is how I feel too. And so you I don't know. I guess you get wiser, but like you say, and when you're in those kind of bands, today, and you're 50 years old, you're competing with 21, 22, 23-year-olds, So you got to stay relevant in that way if you're going to continue to play music. But yeah.
Well, but that's why guys like me, always end up in the what could be called legacy bands. It's just easier. I belong in bands like Quiet Riot, Great White, Slaughter, because that's my time.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the time that I know, and that's the music that I like the best. And so I belong in this genre. You know what I mean? If I was trying to shop at Hot Topic and trying to be a kid, I'd be, you know what I mean? It would be absurd.
Sure.
So that's all.
Right.
And that kind of goes with one of your chapters where you talk about Queen and your idols and meeting, Brian May and just all, these people, and then they eventually die, and how you have to cope with that, and then you survived it. Like he said, you survived, and then you turned into that. Dealing with death is a scary thing, and I just recently have become sober myself. I'm almost 11 months now myself, and like you say, you've had all these years, 30 plus years of drinking, and now I have to figure out, well, what do I do next? But that's one of the things about sobriety, and I always see this stuff on Blabbermouth, people talking about their sobriety. And I guess maybe for some people it's hard to do,
But for me, it was just easy. I mean, I've had my share of frosty pints of beer, and they're tasty, those pints. Yeah. And I've done the shenanigans, and I've done the late nights, and I've done the all-nighters, and I've burnt the candle at both ends. And so you get to a point where, you don't want to be some 80-year-old aqua lung looking dude in a trench coat. You know what I mean? Like like bum fights or something.
Right. Well, this leads perfectly into talking about another chapter that stuck out to me. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm not all the way through your book yet, but the parts I've read are just as masterful and just as creative and entertaining as your previous book. So congratulations to you. But the chapter Saturday Night with Bale the Destroyer, I hope I'm saying that right. To me, I read that, and you at the first of it, you kind of talk about how you're sober now, and then you sort of go through this very detailed, description of the rinse and repeat process of getting hammered every night, getting laid every night, waking up with your.
Now, there's nothing wrong with getting laid.
Well, now hold on now, but with unknown people. I mean, just and I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, everybody on the outside of this world, we're all looking in and going, man, those guys just have a blast. They party. But as I'm reading your description of it, it seems really dark and empty. So my question for you is, when you're living this lifestyle at the time, the rinse and repeat debauchery every night, are you comprehending at that point in time that this is pretty empty and meaningless? Or are you just so in the moment and in such a haze as it's happening that you don't even really think about anything that deep about it?
Well, that's like a 7-part question, so let me try.
Just have at it.
Unravel it. Well, when you struggle your whole life as a musician and then you finally get a record deal, you've earned the hammer of the gods. You've earned the right to pillage the village every night and drink every night, and hang out and do all the stuff that you envisioned your idols doing, like Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, and all the crazy shit that you feel you've earned after years of poverty and struggle and having all your friends think you're a loser, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So that's what you do. And when you're out on a rock and roll bus, I mean, this is back in the day.
Sure.
You're on MTV, you're opening up for your idols like Ronnie Dio and AC/DC and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like those people that win that you see on the news that win the lottery and they screw up, and you're sitting there on your couch going, you know what, if that was me, I would make sure that I would never do that.
Right.
Of course you would. Somebody gave you $100 million, you'd F it up just like these people did, because that's what happens when you get the keys to the candy store. Mm-hmm. And so part of when we were first touring and stuff like that, hey man, I was having a great time all the time. And just like everyone else, I mean, I was no different from all the other guys, right. All the Bang Tangos and all the Faster Pussycats and all the LA Gunses. We were all out there banging the same chicks, hitting the same clubs, blah, blah, blah. One thing about that story that I was talking about is that some of that desperation when you're drinking and it gets you to a dark place, that's because you're dealing with you're not, have I made the right choice in my life? I'm 28 years old and I have no money, I have no car. Did I screw up my life? Right. Is being a musician really going to happen? You start, the doubt starts to enter your mind, and then all your friends are getting record deals and you're not. So of course, that makes you want to drink more.
Sure.
And so some of the stories in that particular chapter are more about the crazy guy that's just like Mr. Hyde, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what happens when Mr. Hyde drinks? Well, he gets in trouble, you know, and that's it's kind of not a happy thing. But then there's a happy ending because you get the record deal, and you know,
Sure.
happy ending.
Did you ever feel like that when you were doing all that stuff, like you were supposed to do that stuff that came with the territory? It's what your heroes did. I mean, so I used to do
Look,
drugs.
man,
And
let me tell you something. When I toured with Ozzy, and this is a funny story, I wanted to party with the guy that was snorting ants.
right,
Mm-hmm.
drinking
You know
piss.
what I mean? I was in training, getting ready, so I could keep up with this guy. You know, if we were going to go to a hotel and he was going to shit in someone's shoe, I was going to do it. I'll do it in the other shoe.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was totally ready to, because that was, you know, Black Sabbath. And so what happened was I went on tour with those guys, and Ozzy is sober. I mean, maybe not sober, but not the guy, not the guy in the dirt, that guy.
Right.
And I go past his dressing room, and Ozzy's on a life cycle. You know what I mean? He's just sitting there pedaling on a life cycle,
Wow.
and it's totally fucking with my mind, because I'm just going, I want the other guy.
Right.
I don't want this guy. I mean, Ozzy doing sit-ups wasn't what I had thought that I was going to get. And
Kind of
so,
loses its thrill, you know?
well, and so we had to, you know, when we were backstage and stuff, it was a dry backstage. We weren't allowed to drink backstage because we were trying to keep him, you know, sober. Mm-hmm. And so we would just be sneaking beers, and Zakk Wylde would come to our bus every night before the show, and he'd pound about a 12-pack.
Wow.
Jeez.
And, you know, because he couldn't drink around him either. So I'm just saying that it was just weird. It was like being in school where you had to sneak out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I had to go sneak a beer and something like that. But yeah, that was you know, we ended up, you know, drinking anyway. Oh well.
Yeah, it happens.
So you have J Pearl TV. And
Yes.
I believe
have you seen some of that stuff?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
Let's put it up on the screen. Yeah, go ahead, Scott, with your question.
Well, I did watch some videos, and I see where you're talking a lot about, you know, of course, your book and things like that. And there's one episode I watched was about of course, the Platinum Club, and then another one was where you were in London, on the street of London, and I guess some sort of 500 people or something wasn't able to get into one of your concerts, so you and your guitarist went out there.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
Yeah,
tell us a little
that
about your YouTube channel.
Well, it started out as a way to sell the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because podcasts, you know, there's certain podcasts that are fun. This podcast is good. We have a good conversation. The best podcasts are conversations. The best interviews are conversations. They're not somebody just reading this sterile Wikipedia thing at you, and so your answers are going to be Wikipedia answers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just, so tell us about the red room that you were in when you were, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, I would fuck with people when I used to do interviews in Germany and back then, because they don't have sarcasm as much. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I would get just bored, and I would just say outlandish shit, and it would come out in the paper the next day. You know what I mean? Jizzy's decided that he's going to, you know, walk across America, you know, and in search of the perfect, I don't know, blowjob or whatever. And it would be in the newspaper, and everyone would get mad at me. I'm just going, you know, when can I find a good conversation?
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what this whole thing was about, the J Pearl TV. And now it's starting to evolve into, plus I get to put all my music up on the site, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because the Spotify thing is iffy. You gotta get permission from people, and it's hard to hunt down people that own your publishing and have licensed your publishing and stuff. But if you just put the record up on, YouTube, you can just hear all the records,
Sure.
which is great.
So what is your? Go ahead.
And I get to do stories like my Hollywood stories and stuff. I actually finished up a new one. It's funny. I mean, it's it's kind of humorous stuff.
It's cool because it sort of just brings the stories in your books to life, and
well, he has a chapter about the whole interviews and things like that, where he talks about DJs getting pissed off at him or something because he doesn't remember their names.
Sure.
And it's like he knows he does all these interviews and
I remember DJs, remember radio stations, remember record stores, remember. Everybody would come to your concert, and they would all be invited by the record company, and you had to be super, super nice to all these people.
Sure.
And sometimes these people would be shitty. One time, some record store people came to one of my AC/DC shows when we were opening up, and they were kind of shitty, and we were just trying to make conversation. They were all backstage, and I just said, "So, have we sold any records at your store?" And this girl just goes, "You haven't sold any records."
Oh, geez.
And I just thought, I said to her, I go, "Not one?" And she goes, "Not one." And I just thought, what a insert negative word here. You know what I mean? And I have to be nice to these people. And I just went off and started freaking out in another dressing room. And then the next day I get a call from the record company. "You need to apologize to this record store because they were insulted, and you said they treated them," and I just...
Good grief.
Wow.
What a game. What a game. It's crazy.
That's kind of one of the good things about now is that you don't have to, if you don't want to do an interview with someone that you don't like, you don't have to do it.
Sure. Yeah, the powers.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go kiss the ring in every town.
Right.
Well, then we feel honored to have you back for a second time.
Man.
Then,
Well,
totally.
like I said, I mean,
conversation, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So this is Love, Hate, Hell, California, and the release date did get pushed back a little bit, but it's coming out on March 11th.
Yeah.
Can you, Scott? Do you have something to ask about that, or?
No, I just listened to one of his singles he's got on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And I think I think it's about some rocket expert or something, some guy.
Yeah. It's about this guy named Jack Parsons.
Yeah.
Who was one of the forerunners of
Aleister Crowley
of rocketry and stuff like that.
Yes,
but he was also this Aleister Crowley guy. He was this complex Satanist rocket guy, and he had this weird life, and I just ended up kind of writing it about him and Crowley and stuff like that. But I have weird subjects when I write songs. Sometimes I don't do the typical love songs. I write songs. If I'm going to write a love song or a song about that, it's going to be about me and my wife, and it's not going to be sappy. It's going to be kind of telling it how it is. You know what I mean? And how cool it is to be married and to be everyone, especially during lockdown, when people were throwing shit at each other because for the first time they actually had to live together. And
the name of the song is Gonna Take You Higher.
Gonna Take You Higher.
And it's on Golden Robot Records. And I know you did something prior, on Frontier. What to you is the difference between Frontier and Golden Robot?
Well, Frontier's kind of, their bread and butter is kind of the AOR melodic rock stuff. You know what I mean? They kind of really, that's what they specialize in, I think. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
sure.
And Golden Robot's kind of different in that they have different they like different stuff. They like punk bands, they like rock bands, they like all sorts of stuff. And so there is no specific thing. I guess one of the big differences is that they didn't restrict me, and they didn't tell me what I needed to play, and
which is a good
stuff
thing.
like that. Well, a lot of labels, if they're going to give you money, they want to know what they're getting. They want to know that you're not going to give them a song on a drum machine, you know what I mean, and go, where's my $10,000?
Yeah.
Right.
So they were pretty cool about it. They trusted me to deliver the product, and I did, and it's a good record. I mean, it is. It's better than the Frontiers one. It's heavier. I made a point of putting more rhythm guitars in it. Instead of 2, there's 4 or 5. So it has kind of that, like when you listen to AC/DC or something, all those guitars are layered. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the same guitar rhythm, but it's probably 5 or 6 guitars, and that's what makes it so thick and heavy. Like same with Led Zeppelin, like on the Presence record, you hear that there's probably 8 rhythm guitars, and he's playing the exact same thing, but it has that tone and that thickness that I really dig. So that's what we did on this recording. I recorded one side all Les Pauls and one side SGs. So I had this kind of AC/DC Zeppelin-y mix.
Cool.
That's cool.
That's really
Who
nice.
plays lead on it? Because that lead is an amazing solo. It's
Darren Householder, the guy that played on my other record, and he played on the Let's Rumble record with Love Hate.
Awesome.
Okay. One more question back to the J Pearl TV before we start talking a little bit about some Quiet Riot stuff. I'm watching your videos as you're kind of doing the reenactment of your stories. Have you ever, or maybe you already have done this and I just don't know, but have you ever considered getting into acting?
When I was in high school, and this is one of the stories in the book, I don't know if you guys got that far, but I had the lead in the school musical when I was a kid in high school. Nobody thought I could get it. I was just this stoner kid, and I got the lead in the school musical, and all of a sudden I was the most popular kid on campus. I mean, sex-wise, I was like a kid in a candy store, and it was great. And then we had 2 weeks of performances, and it ended just like that.
Wow.
Wow.
My rock star life came and went in 2 weeks, and I was sort of left on the curb going, what just happened?
But you got a taste of it, and you ended up
and
getting
then,
more.
And a lot of the people that I was in my acting class with at the time in Los Angeles ended up being famous actors. And so I'd be stoned watching them on TV, oh my God, she's just won the Grammy, or she just won an Emmy, and I just going, wow, I went to high school with these people, and they're, they're in the Doors movie,
I honestly think you could do it if you ever thought you wanted to put your toe in that water, because you're very good at being very animated and descriptive as you're telling the stories. It's very cool. It's very cool.
It's a weird thing. I mean, what I'm trying to do on the J Pearl TV, it's just, some people may not like it because they want their rock kind of Vince Neil, two-dimensional. They can't kind of break off outside of the box of what they think their rock musician should do and say and stuff. So for me, I'm just having fun with it, and I'm just kind of, doing my own thing. And, I hope people dig it. And of course it helps to sell books. That's the big part. And, I don't think I'm going to be some, internet sensation or whatever, but it's fun.
Let me put
it's
it back
fun
up one
to
more
tell
time.
stories and stuff. Yeah.
Let me put it back up one more time, because I want to make sure people subscribe to it. J Pearl TV, and it's super entertaining, you guys. It's I mean, the videos are great, and like he said, there's access to all his music as well on there. So check that out for sure.
Well, it's cool to see guys that you know who are you've been lifelong musicians do cool little funny things outside of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do stuff like a lot of guys do the songs and stories type thing. You know what I mean? Where they play acoustically and they talk about stuff, and most people just kind of talk about, well, I first wrote this song and I was in a little, one-room apartment and blah blah blah. And I mean, I guess that's okay, that's cool, but to me, that's not. I would rather tell funny rock stories, like the time when me and Zakk Wylde got into a punching match, or the time where, I almost got kicked off the Skid Row tour, because it's funny, it's kind of like Gilligan's Island, where they're just shaking their hands, Jizzy, stop, but at the end of the episode, it's a happy ending and I don't get kicked off the tour and me and Sebastian are hugging and there's always a happy ending with my stories generally.
I think most people really enjoy knowing and seeing that, getting that inside look into all the inner workings of a band. I mean, that's why we love documentaries so much. And real quick, as we get into Quiet Riot talk,
I have another question
okay.
about his
You
book.
go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, you said that you belonged in with that type of music, with the Slaughters and this and that. And I know you get this question, and you actually have a chapter in the book where you talk about the Sunset Strip, what it's like, how the flyer, all the poles down the strip, and where it starts, where it ends. And I know you get this question all the time about what's it like to be back in the day on Sunset Strip. But I have a different question for you, because, with the recent news of Nikki Sixx and Eddie Vedder now going at it about, this band sucks, that band is, whatever. What was it like for you in the 90s on Sunset Strip?
After Nirvana ran everybody off.
Well, the thing is, it wasn't great. It wasn't, all of a sudden, it was like a ghost town in Hollywood. There were guys that just couldn't believe that She's My Cherry Pie wasn't on the radio anymore. Mm-hmm. And then there were guys that were trying to mimic Alice in Chains and you know what I mean, with the red flannel, and trying to write songs like that and stuff like that. And it's weird. I mean, you would give a record company guy a cassette demo and he would go, I'll listen to it, but I know I'm not going to like it. I mean, just shit like that.
Wow.
Like all of a sudden you're uncool. Kind of like how disco became uncool almost immediately, and the Bee Gees were just going, well, now what do we do? But see, they were rich, so they just went back to their mansions and did blow.
Right.
Guys like us were just going, well, what is this it? Is it over? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Is it over? And so what you come to learn is that music is cyclical, meaning that the rock, the Great White, the Warrant, the Night Ranger rock, it always comes back. Mm-hmm. It's just, you just have to wait it out. You have to wait out the grunge, and then the ska, and then the Green Day. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're all going to have their time in the sun. And then, if you stay true to yourself, eventually what you do best will return. And it did. Mm-hmm. I joined LA Guns, I think in 97 or 98, after a long dry spell. And we were back playing Rock Never Stops tours on a bus, playing big places, and it was just like it had never stopped.
Yeah,
Right.
I've seen a
You
few
know
of
what I mean?
those.
Well, not a lot of bands from that era. I mean, the very few that survived through the 90s, I mean, slim. I mean, there is a few though. There's a couple that, continued to play, and even though they weren't getting the coverage, I mean,
I tell you, who's had it worse was a lot of those one-hit wonder bands.
It helps with the fans, because the fans, if they didn't come, if they weren't into the music, then obviously, there wouldn't be a scene anyway. I mean, speaking of Quiet Riot, we're doing some stuff touring this summer, playing with some bigger bands and stuff in packages. And yeah, I mean, it'll be similar to what it's always been. People come out for 3 or 4 bands, or and they're going to get the shirts and drink the beers and hang out outside in the nice weather and enjoy themselves. So yeah, it'll be great.
So Quiet Riot, you got new tour dates.
Yes.
You got Rudy Sarzo in the fold. He came
which is
in.
so cool.
Yeah.
It was cool, but it seemed like it was like unexpected for me because of Chuck Wright and his establishment and Quiet Riot. To be honest with you, once Frankie passed on, it was almost like there was, what's the identity of Quiet Riot? Who's running the ship here? Who's calling the shots? And for me, I always thought, well, it's probably then at this point Chuck Wright, and then suddenly now he's out, Rudy's in. What's going on, and how are things with you and the lineup?
Well, Frankie's wife runs the ship, and Alex does a lot of the tour managing and a lot of the logistical stuff. And we have Sullivan Big as our agent, who's obviously one of the heavy hitters. And the machine sort of runs itself. I mean, there's not a whole lot. I mean, we've been doing this for so long that we, you know what I mean? We know what we're doing, and it's just having Rudy back in the band obviously has generated a lot of attention.
Sure.
And people want to see him play these songs. It's something to see. It's if you're into that music and you remember what you remember, you're going to see that when you come see the band. You know what I mean? You're not going to see 4 big fat dudes with beards,
Bilbo Baggins,
sweating to the oldies. It's you're going to get some of that, Quiet Riot experience. And trust me, I see all that when we play. I see all the guys in the opening bands backstage. They're all on the side of the stage watching. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's into it.
So was the plan, was Chuck leaving the band prior to asking Rudy to join the band, or was Rudy going to come back and you had to tell Chuck, well, Rudy's going to come back?
Yeah, how did
more of the latter.
More of the latter.
Okay.
Yeah. Without getting too much into the business particulars, I think Rudy was really good friends with Frankie.
Sure.
And I think that, he made a decision, not immediately, but after soul searching, whatever you want to say, and decided that he would, take the mantle and he would carry the torch.
Wow.
And, he's an OG.
He was one of we interviewed him. He was one of the nicest guys.
Yes.
He's such a nice guy.
So that's, and obviously, from a business standpoint, it's great. And also, like you say, he's easy to work with, and we all get along, and, and all this dumb kid stuff, arguing and bickering and infighting, stuff that happened in my love-hate band back in the day, and in other bands that I was in, like Rat, when there was fighting and stuff like that. It's not really, there's none of that in this. It's basically just, it's business, and it's people hanging out at breakfast, shooting the shit, and you know what I mean. And
That's a dream.
And it's great. It's just that, you know, everyone kind of leaves their ego at the door and just does the best they can, and it's all about the music, and it's all about sounding good and playing good, and everyone has that you know, thing that nobody wants to suck.
You know, I was watching some video of you guys with Rudy, and I mean, the Kevin Dubrow stuff is not easy to sing, and you nail that stuff, man. I mean, it's a high register to sing a lot of those songs.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
No, you sounded great doing it too. I was like, wow.
Well, one thing I'll interject here for the folks who maybe haven't seen it. Scott and I have watched the 2014 documentary done on Quiet Riot called "Well, Now You're Here, There's No Way Back." We've probably watched that, I would say 4 or 5 times. And
way more than that.
Well,
at least 8.
Okay,
because we have to share it to show it to friends.
Yeah, we brought our bass player over and his wife the other night. We showed it to them because they hadn't seen it.
I wish Jizzy had more of a part in it.
Yeah,
though.
You're in at the very end.
Well, it was done. It was done before I ever joined.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when you see me sort of inserted at the very end, it's just because it was done.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so they couldn't really, at that point, you know, they couldn't just open up that whole thing again and reshoot.
I got to tell you, though, it was a little different watching it. This is the first time I've watched it since Frankie has passed, and it
was a hard watch.
It was a lot tougher to watch this time. Of course, you know, the first time you watch it, it's almost like it's in 2 halves. The first half of it is Frankie processing and dealing with the death of Kevin, and then the second half is just this chase for a new frontman. And man, I got to tell you, when the first time we saw that, and you know, we're like, oh, cool, this guy gets the gig. Okay, that's cool, good for him. And then bam, the very last scene, they cut him out, and here's Jizzy and the band. They finally came to their senses and grabbed you, and man,
they just literally took a pair of scissors and put me back in.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch back with what you were saying, because I actually have this written down. When you brought up the Rat and the infighting and the bickering and the fighting, and John Corabi, he just recently was talking about Rat himself, even back with when you were in the band, and basically was saying, check your egos at the door. And he just couldn't, you know, there was supposedly a new album that's supposed to come back, or they were going to release a new album contract or something like that. And he just said, I can't do this. Even when Stephen Pearcy came back and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm out. Tell us a little bit about those days. The infighting, and you guys would go off and eat and everything, and they'd still be fighting about speed, timing, and stuff.
It's not just them; it's all bands. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I used to like that Supertramp record, Breakfast in America.
It's a great
album. It was a long time ago. And I remember seeing them in concert and kind of, I don't know, digging them at some point. And then I heard the story about how they all hated each other and how they all traveled in separate limos and wouldn't speak to each other. And I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. I just don't get it. I mean, you guys are this band and you make this great music. Why wouldn't you be best of friends and this and that? And then, of course, you join Love Hate and you realize, you know, the reality. Yeah. I mean, we used to fight all the time, and Rat, Bobby and Steve, Bobby and Warren used to bicker, not fight, but just kind of bicker. Mm-hmm. And a lot of time, I tried to do a Love Hate reunion. Put it this way. I tried to do a Love Hate reunion in 2007, and I got my bass player and drummer and me, and we all went to England, and 2 gigs in, the tour almost ended because they started fighting in the van. And I'm sitting there watching this shit go down, and it was basically the old arguments. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. It wasn't new stuff. It was, you think you're so smart. You think you're this. You think you're the blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is the shit that I used to hear back when we lived in the loft in 1988. The same stupid back and forth arguments. And so that's kind of how it was with Rat, is that those guys were fighting about stuff from 20 or 30 years ago. That's why we would all take off, because it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like bitching about what song is going to be first in the set list and having it turn into a thing. It's just, there's more underlying, it's like an iceberg. You're not seeing the 9/10 of animosity that's under the water from years and years and years. I mean, those guys have been together for years and years. So, I mean, but the fighting and stuff like that, it's every band.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know how many bands. I mean, Rush might be an example of a band that truly got along. You know, you can see that they were just friends and compadres. And, but most bands there's a lot of this going around, and there's a lot of, stuff.
There only needs to be one chef in the kitchen, and sometimes other people don't get that.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, it's when, like, the Go-Go's, when they got big and famous, they were, Jane Weedland wrote all those songs. She wrote Our Lips Are Sealed. Mm-hmm. And so she made demonstrably more money in songwriting than the rest of the guys in the band. And that was what started the breakup of their band, is that everyone was bitching at her. Well, you're making 10 times more money than we are. And she goes, well, I wrote all the fucking songs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And then they wanted her to divide up her publishing 5 ways. And she said no. And I'm just saying sometimes women break up the band. Sometimes drugs break up bands. Sometimes it's just money. Yeah. Some guys are making more money than others, and the resentment starts to simmer. And after, like in the band, the band, Levon Helm, didn't speak to the rest of the guys in the band because he felt like he got ripped off. Mm. All those songs, Cripple Creek and, all those songs, he felt like he should have had a full share, and he didn't get it. So he just wouldn't even play those songs.
That reminds me of a story I heard about Rat, and that same thing happening with Bobby Blotzer being all pissed off because, the other guys were getting the writing credits in the I think it was Bo Hill I heard talk about this on some podcast, but so they tried to include Bobby in it somehow so Bobby wouldn't feel left out, even though he was just putting a drum beat to
Full in Bloom.
That's what it was.
They will give, you don't have to have a complete dictatorship. I mean, if you want people to be happy in a band, you give them a piece.
Sure.
Maybe you don't give them a full share, but you give them something because they contributed, you know what I mean? And Bobby, for all his faults or whatever, he played on all those records and he deserves,
Absolutely.
a share of the songwriting. Sure. Not maybe an equal share, but a share because he put in his sweat and toil into those songs and he deserves it.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, in your book, you talk about them being 2 eras of the Sunset Strip, one being the Motley era and, Quiet Riot. And I'm assuming you meaning the Metal Health. And then you seen the Guns N' Roses, Faster Pussycat. And I'm going to come back to this because I want to ask you about the Van Halen, which was before that era of Sunset Strip. But in your book, you mention a lot of bands in there, Wasp being one of them, and they have just recently have announced their tour, and they're going to come back and bring all the whole, fire and everything that they had, when they came out on the Sunset Strip on this tour. And just recently in the news, we've just found out that Chris Holmes is now going to be, he is battling cancer. How does that make you feel, these people that you kind of came in from the Valley, and then you had to work your way into all these different circles of LA and try to fit in with all this. And then, all these people start leaving us and things like that. I mean, I guess my question is how do you deal with, I guess, your rock heroes passing? And I know you have a chapter on that, when you talk about.
Well, everyone is getting older. There's certain people that I really dig as singers that are in their 70s, and they can't sing Baba O'Reilly anymore the way they used to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not his fault. I mean, he's 75 years old. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson, you know what I mean?
Paul Stanley.
Well, Brian Johnson's got probably the hardest job in rock and roll.
Yes.
I mean, I watch, you know what I mean? Anybody that can sing that stuff nightly, my hat's off to him.
He's got to put his whole body into that, man. His whole body. You can see it when he's singing.
So there comes a time when you have to bow to Father Time. You're not the same person that you were. You're not the same kid that you were. So what do? Well, you get sober. You work harder. You know what I mean? You try and stay in the game more. You don't take shit for granted. And I mean, it's just, like dealing with Ronnie dying, Dio, or, when Janie Lane died. It's in my book. I was in the back of the LA Guns van, and I was just on the internet, and it said that Janie Lane died. And I thought it was like one of those hoax things. Yeah. And so I checked it, and there were 2 or 3 other things. And I just remember screaming. I go, Tracy, Janie Lane just died. We're in the middle of Indiana or something. We're on the road, and it's a tragedy. But, for LA Guns and us, life goes on. You know what I mean? And we have a gig tomorrow, and we have a gig the next day, and stuff like that. And you feel bad. And the people that knew him knew that he was having problems. And yeah, I mean, he couldn't, get over it.
Yeah. It's hard to process, but unfortunately it is part of life. But, we just want to make sure people are aware. Oh, real quick before I circle back to the book, a lot of dates coming up for Quiet Riot. You guys have a nice full schedule. It stretches all the way through. I even saw some 2023 dates on there. February 18th, you guys will be in, I hope I'm saying this right, Uncasville, Connecticut. And you're really all over the place. And I noticed on Saturday, June 4th, you're back at the Whiskey. Anytime you see that on your schedule, you must circle that. And I would assume anytime you get to play at the Whiskey, it probably holds a special place for you. Is that the case?
More so with my original band.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I literally, what was it, last year? I played the 30th anniversary of the release of Blackout in the Red Room, and we played the Whiskey on the day it came out. It was I didn't even know, but the guy that books the Whiskey Wikipedia'd me and said, your record came out on February 22nd, 1990. And I just, okay. So,
thank you.
So that was pretty cool, kind of marking that in the calendar. Yeah, I mean, I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I live in Las Vegas, and I don't go out the way I used to. I mean, it's just kind of, back in the day, the Whiskey was like Cheers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I would go there every night, like Lemmy would go to the Rainbow every night, and I'd sit at my bar stool, and I'd get my free beer, and and I would hold court, back then. And, it is nice. But yeah, I think that people, when we play the Whiskey this time, with Rudy, I think that there'll be a little bit more, attention paid for that.
Now, one of the chapters in your book, you talk a lot about, pop culture, growing up, your parents having these pay-per-view boxing, drunken parties and stuff, and cookouts, and a scene where, Tattoo, is on your dad's lap or something like that. It was a really crazy chapter. And you talk about, going to try to get see Marsha Brady from the Brady Bunch was at some mall, and she kind of broke your heart because she didn't want nothing to do with you and didn't want to date you and things like that. It's a funny chapter because all of that shit, is the same stuff that we grew up watching, and a teenage, not even a teenage kid, basically, 12, 10, 9-year-old kid, and you got the bicycle down.
What's weird about it is that people forget about all that stuff. We all have had probably similar, things happen as far as television history and goofy stuff and going to the mall and, but I'm able to tap into it and actually like go back in time and write about it. Like I was there, today, going to the mall and all the feelings of, just, Marsha Brady, it sounds silly, but when you're 12 or 13 years old, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And Partridge Family, Lori Partridge, come on.
Right.
Sure.
The funniest thing about that chapter, though, is like you read it and you know all of these characters, all of these actresses and actors and things, and then it just Jizzy style, it just turns into Manson and the Charlie Manson family, where you're like spending the night in some cave and daring your friends to do all that shit, and there's writing from the Manson family. So it's just a really cool chapter, and
that's a true story. We lived right near Spawn Ranch in Chatsworth, and the Manson thing was a little before my time. I was younger then, but Helter Skelter, and you could go to Spawn Ranch and in and around that area in the canyons and stuff, and you could see shit, and it was creepy.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're a kid and you're stoned. It would be no small thing for some shrieking chick to come out from behind a tree with a butcher knife,
Right.
So, it was a heavy thing. We did dare each other to go spend the night at Spawn Ranch.
Jeez.
and couldn't do it.
Wow.
No way.
That's funny that you talk about that, because I grew up in California too, and I don't know, you'll probably remember the Hillside Strangler. So I heard about that when I was 7 or 8 years old, but even it was nowhere near. I was in San Diego. It was nowhere near me, but it freaked me the fuck out. It's like, oh my God, man, the Hillside Strangler. Shit. Funny though.
But yeah, that's the thing is as a writer, I'm able to tap into and also the drug stuff, some of the stuff I talk about when I was a kid, experimenting with drugs and making it funny, making it lighthearted and just, Jizzy's on a peyote trip, or Jim actually back then, he's on a peyote trip and he's freaking out and, stuff like that. It's funny stuff. I just assumed that everybody when we were all younger did the same stuff, experimented with the drugs and took the drugs and,
Yeah.
Well, let's put this up one more time. Do you have another question before I start wrapping it up?
I want to talk about one more chapter in this book.
You got it. Go
which
for
he
it.
brings back one of my favorite chapters in your last book, Unhappy Endings. You bring back the Platinum Club girls.
Ah, yes.
That's
And those women, you can read all of that stuff in your last book, and you think, wow, these women were out for just one thing, and then suddenly they become married, and now they got all of these rich husbands, and and they bring this book in, and they're like, slam it down, and they're like, look at this shit, this is us in this book, and Jizzy's fucking pointing us out, and that's you, and no, that's not me, and they're just fussing and fighting. That's
it was a good first story to sort of tie it back in. Yeah, these girls way back when, lived fast and loose just like us guys, and now they're trophy wives, and they don't want their husbands to know about their past, and so they just sort of, hush it up, and it's not,
Sweep it
politically
under the rug.
correct to talk about, the after parties with the bands and all that stuff.
So let me ask you one final question, and we'll wrap things up and let you go. Thank you for all your time tonight. When you're putting a book together like this, almost 300 pages, and it's not a timeline, it's not a chronological series of events, it's just random short stories. Talk about the process of how you as the writer decide to arrange this chapter, order wise. I mean, is it hard to figure that out, or you just throw them out there as you go along?
You know what? It's the same. It's the same way that I decide how a record,
Song order.
how songs end up on a record. Song 1, song 2, song 3. It's a vibe thing, and it's a flow thing.
Okay.
And that's how it's done. I mean, I moved a lot of the stories around and ditched some of them that I didn't think were good enough. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a process of what feels right. There is no science to it. It's just,
Right.
it just flow. It's for a flow thing.
Yeah.
So how long have you been working on the book? I mean, I would assume years, right?
No, it's a couple of months.
Holy
Wow.
crap.
Shit.
That's incredible.
No. Well, what happened was, obviously the lockdown, everybody had a lot of free time.
Mm-hmm.
I just, decided that it might be a good time, partly because we didn't have any gigs, and I thought maybe it's a good time to diversify. Maybe putting out those books, even though it's expensive, might be a good idea, because it's always good to have options, because no one knew how long the lockdown was going to go on. I mean,
Sure.
We could have been out of work for years,
Well,
And so that was partly it. And I thought, well, why not write a new one to sort of go along with the old ones and make the old ones, it made more sense to write a new one. And so when I'm in a writing mode, the shit just comes out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I immerse myself in writing songs for a record, I drive my wife crazy, because I'm in that mode.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And as far as writing and stories and stuff like that, it really didn't take that long. I had a lot of good ideas. Maybe they were just sitting there for a long time and I never used them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't really take that long,
That's
honestly.
great.
we have a lot of people in the chat room, and they're watching this live interview. There's no edits. It's just raw.
Yeah, if we fuck up,
interview.
we fuck up, and everybody sees
and
it.
everyone's chiming in and asking some questions and things like that, and we'll get to those real quick. But
Well,
I do
tell
wanna-
those people in the chat room, to subscribe to my channel. I hate to be the guy, because if you watch YouTube like I do, which I watch it a lot, and it gets boring. I mean, it gets annoying when people always have to say, please subscribe to the channel and blah, blah, blah. But
Right.
now, because I have a channel, I get it.
Right.
I get it. It really does mean something when you have subscribers.
Sure.
It kind of builds on itself, you know what I mean? And so that's why I always ask, and I always ask for people to go to my website and get the books, and people bitch about the postage, and people, bitch about this and that. But hey, man, there are no more record stores. There are no more real bookstores anymore.
Right.
Everyone gets stuff online, and postage is expensive.
Yes, it is.
There's no way around it. If I want to buy something, from overseas, it's going to cost a fortune. But if I really want it, I'm going to get it, And with these books, I said this a day or two ago. I mean, when they're gone, they're going to be gone. I mean, I'm going to keep a couple for myself to put in my bookcase, but I'm not going to reprint it, because it's too expensive.
Sure.
It's thousands and thousands of dollars, man.
Jeez, man.
It's just, I'm not King Midas.
Well, here's some of the questions from the people in the chat room, and then we'll let you go. I do have one question real quick about Quiet Riot's new album. Is that coming soon?
I don't know about soon, but probably this year.
I have a question too, since AC/DC has come up a lot. I'm a Bon Scott guy. What about you, Bon or Brian?
Bit of both. I like Brian because I'm a fan of the Back in Black record. I think that record is one of the best rock records that was ever made, along with Aerosmith Rocks and Zeppelin Physical Graffiti and The Who Quadrophenia. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. But I mean, the Back in Black record is, there's not a shitty song on the entire thing.
You're right. I feel that way about Highway to Hell. That's in the top 5 for me.
Highway to Hell is a great record too.
Yeah, every song.
All right. Well, Alan Clark in the chat room says, very cool interview. I got peeps in Arizona. Maybe Bullhead 2022? ? That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. We're playing somewhere in April in Bullhead. Yeah, we are.
Awesome.
Cool. Leslie Allard says, I still go to the bookstore. I want the actual book. Jennifer.
Well, she has to
go to that website.
Yeah. Jennifer.
The power of Christ compels you.
Right. Jennifer Burkett says, hi, Jizzy. Tell Alex I said hi. Stacy Lundgren says, how high was he when he came up with his name?
How high were you, Jizzy, when you came up with Jizzy Pearl?
How high was I? Well,
that's the question.
My real name is Jim, and I write about it in my book about how I came from the San Fernando Valley, and I would come out to Hollywood, and I would see bands like Motley Crue with guys named Nikki Sixx, and Poison with CeCe DeVille, and Blackie Lawless, and they all seemed very much larger than life. Their names on a marquee looked larger than life, and my real name didn't cut it. So we threw some showbiz into it, and who knew that 40 years later I'd still have to, be Jizzo, but you are what you are.
Right.
Mike DiPertillo says, planning on catching at least 2 shows on the tour. Way looking forward to seeing and hearing some live Quiet Riot.
Yes.
Leslie says, how long have you been clean?
Clean.
I would assume that means sober.
Took a shower, right?
Yeah. I almost 4 years, I guess.
That's great.
I just don't, my family is Irish, and so there's addictive personalities in my family. I mean, some severe ones, but I never had that addictive thing. I mean, some people, if I take one drink, I can't stop and this and that, but I just decided that I was gonna, like when I quit smoking weed or doing blow, 100 years ago, I just decided I don't want to smoke weed anymore. And I used to love smoking weed. I mean, listen to Blackout in the Red Room record. I mean, that was us.
You're very health conscious now, aren't you?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing about, being sober, it's not really, some people, I guess, if they really have a problem and they get sober, they feel a lot better. And they talk about it and they wear it, they got the AA pin and stuff like that. But for me, I don't know. I just decided I didn't want to drink anymore. And sometimes it's boring,
Yeah.
But it's just better. It's better because you want to live longer and you want to be healthy and you don't want to, fuck up.
That's right.
Yeah. Speaking of fucking up, so your story or your book, you have a chapter in there where you talk about where you're in Amsterdam and you go to the red light district and these women are, asking you, is telling you how much it's going to be, I guess, a head or whatever. And I was recently in Key West, and I was reading your chapter and I had a chuckle because I've never been to Key West before, and I walked on Duval Street, and there's these women came up and were grabbing me by my arm forcefully and was like trying to drag me into this club. I didn't know if it was a strip club at the time or if it was a whorehouse or what it was, but your story about Amsterdam and just how the red light district is just fascinating, and just I just had to get a chuckle because I had that kind of same experience as you did.
His eyes were as big as saucers
and
when we found
it's
him.
very intimidating, like you say in your book. It's intimidating to talk to these type of women.
The Reaper bond was way more heavy in Hamburg. Amsterdam, the girls were behind the windows, the famous girl, the hookers in the windows and stuff.
Right.
And that's different. I mean, they're almost unapproachable, but in the Reaper bond in Hamburg, I mean, these girls will just come up to you and start, talking spreadsheets of what's, blowjobs are this, if you want this, it's going to be this, and blah, blah, blah. Jeez. And it is, I mean, you're buzzed, and these girls are really, really hot. And it's intimidating. I mean,
Amazing.
It's just like a big hustle, and it's like I felt like after I walked off, everyone was like, "Check your wallet, dude. Check your wallet." It's probably gone, and they're already going.
Well, at least they cut all the bullshit out of it to get there. You know what I mean?
Right.
They tell you straight up what's going on, and here's what it's going to cost. So no bullshit.
It was just it's so clinical and so professional that it's just it's intimidating. But
Hamburg, wow.
Hamburg is.
Well, just
Hamburg was heavy.
Think what the Beatles. I'm sure they had their a good time there back in '62 as well. I'm sure that was going on back then too.
Who knows what it's like now? I mean, I toured Germany when the wall was still up.
Oh wow.
The Berlin Wall and stuff. So I mean, it was a long, long time ago, and it was just a different time.
Well, before we cut you loose, let's put this up on the screen one more time. We'd like to ask all the viewers to go check out jizzypearl.net. Make sure you pick up not only his newest book, All the Devils, but make sure you have the other three as well. Again, he's offering them. You can either purchase them individually or you can get them as a book bundle. You can find all that on jizzypearl.net. Let's put this up again. This is the new one. It's great. I look forward to finishing it. Almost 300 pages. It is All the Devils. It's his first book in 15 years.
Yeah, who read the whole thing?
I got almost all the way through. I'm like about a couple chapters still left to go.
Okay, there's a story at the end that's really good. It's called The Curse of the 80s.
Oh, I read that. I did read that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, this book is this book is a little less harsh than the other ones. If you guys read some of the other ones.
We read the third one.
Yes.
Yeah, the other ones were just time goes on and these stories are a little less shocking maybe than the ones in the other books. But that guy was a different guy. That guy was a Viking, you know what I mean, and still out, pillaging, and this guy is married, but he's still can tell good fart jokes.
Yeah.
Do you think you have more books in you, or do you think this is it?
I can always write more. It just depends. I mean, it's an energy thing for me. It's I'm doing the YouTube channel now, and maybe that'll turn into something. But as you alluded to before, Quiet Riot has a lot of shows.
Yes.
And if you're playing 3 shows a weekend, every weekend for months, that doesn't leave you a whole lot of free time. You know what I mean?
No.
You're gone a lot, and it's a lot of airports, and it's a lot of getting up early, and it's a lot of travel, and so you don't have the luxury of being the novelist sitting by the fire, casually writing down stuff. It's
right.
So I'm focused. We're gonna work more on this Quiet Riot record. We got some songs done. We're gonna do some more, and that'll probably be out this year. And there's just gonna be a shitload touring, and
That's great.
He's going to be singing over Frankie Banali's drum tracks.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be a record, I believe, that's still going to have Frankie's drumming on it.
That's special.
So that's going to be a very special album.
And Rudy playing on it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Man.
We're gonna need a Tulsa. We're gonna need a Tulsa date from you guys, man.
No doubt.
So all the Devils.
You have to look on the schedule. Maybe there is something.
I don't think there was one yet.
I didn't see it.
But hopefully you're
Well, they're
gonna
not
put
all there.
you
know
put
what
in
I
the
mean?
good word for us.
Some of the shows haven't been announced. There's a tour coming up that hasn't been announced yet, and I can't talk about it, but that might. It's a shed tour. It's a big tour, and we're one of the openers. Great. So that could very well, hit you guys.
Good.
Who knows?
Good.
Well,
we hope so. We hope so.
And hopefully you guys will get out there to Key West and play Rock Island Fest next year as well.
It's a great time, man.
So All the Devils, the title. Has anyone asked you where did this come up from?
Because the cover is a representation of a tarot card. If you look at it,
let's go back to.
I mean, my wife is into this stuff, and so there's a card in the tarot deck called the Devil card, and what that card is, it's not satanic, but what it is it talks about people's addictions and people's vices. So if you look at the cover, it's what people are chained to in their lives. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so if you see, I'm chained to being Jizzo, which is, kind of weird. And if you look down on the other stuff, there's some magic mushrooms, and there's some booze bottles, and there's some skulls of my ex-girlfriends.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I was looking for a Hollywood sign on there somewhere too. It's not there.
So I mean, the stuff, the cover is basically a representation of what the Devil card would be if it was a Jizzo deck. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where that title came from.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
I'm glad you explained that.
Man, you have given us over an hour of your time. Thank you so much. This has just been great, and we really appreciate your work. Not only your written work, but your work with Quiet Riot, Love Hate, all the stuff you've done. It's just been it's just been a pleasure getting to know you better, and we really just say congratulations for doing such a good job on these books.
And what's so cool is last night as we were doing some research on you, Jizzy, we were actually watching a pay-per-view boxing match.
Okay.
That's in one of his.
Well, I'm glad you guys dug it, and it's you guys are one of the good ones.
Thanks,
awesome.
buddy.
Thank you, man.
That
so
means a
much.
lot, because I know you do a lot of these, and I'm sure a lot of them are pretty boring. But thanks for being
Wayne's
so cool.
World.
But seriously, anytime you have something new to promote, we're here, and we'll put you on. We thank you so much for your time. Everybody, please check out jizzypearl.net, order those books, and subscribe to his J Pearl TV on YouTube.
Yeah,
Go do that right now.
And hit those hearts. Give him some love, everybody.
That's right.
Give Jizzy Pearl some love.
That's
He
right.
wants to. It's Valentine's coming up, so give him some love.
That's right. Jizzy, thank you so much. Have a great night.
All
We'll
right.
talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jizzy.
Okay,
man.
thank
Appreciate
you
you.
guys.
Keep rocking.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
There you go. Cool guy.
I'm glad I got that question about the title.
I know. That was interesting. I haven't looked at the cover close enough to see all of that, but very cool.
I wanted to ask him about his thoughts of the Dio hologram, and he did say his thoughts, but I was going to ask him, what did he think about if there was ever going to be a Jizzy Pearl hologram?
Will there ever be a Scott Squires hologram?
No.
Coming soon.
when this Scott Squires gets tired and too old, we're going to have a Scott Squires hologram.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. That's
So
special.
I mean, we have a lot in common. We had strippers,
you have that in common.
forcing us into
Are you a
their
stripper?
establishments,
Oh, I see.
and watching pay-per-view boxing.
And that's
matches.
weird because for me, I there's some things I could relate to as well. The partying and the stuff that comes with it, and so I mean, some of our experiences are kind of the same. They may be on a smaller level, but we experience a lot of the same kind of things. So
Ronnie James Dio was a big influence on him. He wanted to be that type of singer, and he, realized like, hey, this is kind of tough. It takes a lot more than just singing. It takes a look, and you have to have an appeal about your band. And he was, mentioning all these people he'd have to hang out with, the CeCe DeVille's, the Nikki Sixx's, the Robin Crosby's, and he'd be in a club, and here comes Robin. He's all decked out and tall and just looking awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, how can I compete with this?
A rock god.
Someone like Robin Crosby, and
Sure.
Rat and all this.
Well, definitely check out his book. It's just pure entertainment, and it's really intelligent, too.
I think I relate to mostly his explanation of the name change. I get that completely. You want to have something cool, not your real name. Hint, hint, so
Yeah, you got to stand out. I mean, that's the name of the game for sure. Real quick, we're running short on time because we don't want to hold you guys too much longer on a Sunday night, but let's give a shout out to DEB Concerts, our sponsor. Look at these blockbuster shows coming up. He's bringing in Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube with Warren G, March 24th. All of these shows are at the BOK. April 30th, Megadeth, Lamb of God in Flames. And then August 20th, Poison with Cinderella's Tom Kiefer and LA Guns. Congratulations, Doug Burgess, on those shows. Check out debconcerts.com for more information. Sycamore Filmworks, we thank you so much for the cool new intro.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks, Syke.
Totally appreciate it. Identity Merch runs our online store, and if you have any kind of band printing needs or business, it doesn't have to be a band, Todd Cook can hook you up with some screen printing, so check them out at Identity Merch. Okie PC, thank you, Dustin Little, for making our streaming on multi-platforms possible. If you have any IT needs, you can check them out, Okie PC, at 918-640-0892, or email Dustin at okiepc.com, gregshipman.com. We thank you for all the great, you've made us look great with the pictures and everything on here. We appreciate all you guys have done for us. Congratulations and all your success going on right now with your band. Riverside Rebellion, make sure you guys check them out, and Surviving Rocklahoma. We appreciate Adam making these Zoom calls possible. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming shows. Our next one will be Sunday, February 20th at 6 p.m. Central with Chips Enough of Enough's Enough.
Yeah, I just texted him yesterday and
cool.
gave him a reminder. He says, "Thanks, Scott."
Well, we'll have to do it again, probably on February 18th, 19th, and 20th, but that's okay. We'll stay locked in with old Chip. And then TMS episode 53, Eddie Trunk will be on. Wow, that's going to be awesome. That's a Thursday evening at 6:30 Central. And then we've got TMS episode 54. This guy is so cool. We saw him at Rock Island Fest with Bret Michaels' band. It's Norman Voss. He plays bass for Bret Michaels. And so those are going to be some very cool shows coming up. And we would be remiss if we did not say, Josh Jones, we love you and we're thinking about you. We're very sorry for the passing of your mother. She was beautiful and was very supportive of you. And I know your heart is hurting and we're hurting with you, but we love you and we're thinking about you and praying for you. And I don't know if everybody knows, I mean, I don't think it's a secret, but our buddy Travis Oles is battling cancer as well right now. And we just want to send thoughts and prayers to Travis. And if you guys can,
love you, man.
If you can reach out to him, drop him a line, check on him, and see how he's doing. He's been a staple in this town behind the drums, and he's a good guy. So we're praying for him as well.
I'll kill a bitch.
That he will. He'll get you. He'll get you.
Fried chicken in the ear, my friend.
Fried chicken in the ear.
He's a good dude.
It wasn't just fried chicken.
I'm gonna need a Jaeger.
That was more like a wing, wasn't it?
It was a chicken wing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to him and get him on here, for a little short segment if he's feeling up to it.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for tuning in the chat room. We appreciate you guys. Tracy Long, Dustin Little, Tanya Thompson, Bernadette.
Oh, you know what? And man, get well, Teresa Gaddy. She's not feeling well tonight. That's why we're lost on who's in the chat room, because she's not here helping us keep track of it. She's not feeling well. She's under the weather. So get well, sister. We hope you're doing good.
Thank you, Doug Weber, for tuning in. Tammy, thank you. Carla Rice, thank you. Leslie, I already said. Angie Parker, there you are. How you doing? And Alan Clark, thank you. We had some people from Arizona, Mexico City.
So cool.
Just a lot of people and in so many different places. I don't know if I saw something about Australia.
I think so.
But yeah, we got some people that are I like, hello from Australia. That's Peter Tazgazazun.
Hello, Peter from Oklahoma. Not as cool as
This is
Australia,
cool.
is it?
When you have someone from Australia and people from Mexico, and it's just amazing that we can all share this story that is everything Jizzy Pearl and talking about everyone's story. It's just amazing that these people can come in and
it's very cool
and just tune in. It's
Love
amazing. It's like having your own TV show.
Basically, minus the big payday ads. But that's
Right.
Okay. That's okay. We're working on it. Anyway, we love you guys. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you back here. I think I said February 20th with Chips and Chips.
Yes, February 20th at 6 p.m.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, it wouldn't be a show without throwing paper that I get to pick up as they walk. Oh, you hit the camera.
I did, didn't I? I did good.
It's shaking.
You done good, Nine.
Done good.
Hey, Jizzy was cool. Thanks again, Jizzy.
Thanks, buddy. You guys have a great night. Have a great week. Thanks for watching Tulsa Music Stream. We'll see you back here on February 20th.
Tulsa Music Stream.
Out.
Good night.